Daniel Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2023 Quick Lane Bowl matchup between the Minnesota Golden Gophers and the Bowling Green Falcons. Two teams that have had good seasons getting to this point. You got Minnesota 5-7 on the season. This is a team that is the 5-7 team to get to bowl season. This was a team, though, at one point was 5-3. They've lost their last 4 games heading into this matchup, but looking to finish off the season on a high note as they take on Bowling Green, a team that's 7-5. And really opposite to Minnesota, this is a Bowling Green team that actually has some pretty good momentum heading into bowl season. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with their team trends. Minnesota lost to Wisconsin 14-20 to finish out the regular season. Just a brutal way to finish out the regular season for Minnesota. They were 5-3 heading into November. Lost their last 4 games, and really this was a team that was right in the thick of it for the Big Ten West heading into November. They had some promise coming off of a couple of nice wins. They beat Iowa 12-10 back in late October, and then obviously had that nice win over Michigan State, but just went cold down the stretch. So for Minnesota, this is a team that it's been a bit of a disappointing season as well, I would say. I feel like we kind of expected Minnesota to be right up there as a contender in the Big Ten West. I think Iowa was the main favorite, but you kind of had Wisconsin and Minnesota right there in the background as well. And I mean, this team was in contention, obviously, until November, and things kind of took a turn. But as for Bowling Green, beat Western Michigan 34-10. This is a team that's actually come around quite a bit in the last month and a half or so. They have won 5 of their last 6. This is a team that was 2-4 heading into mid-October. They had just gotten shut out to Miami, Ohio at 27-0. But this team really improved over the course of the season, especially in the second half. So I got to give huge credit to Bowling Green. This team has got some pretty good momentum heading into bowl season. Games be on Tuesday, the 26th in Detroit. Kickoff is 2 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going Minnesota by 3.5. So despite Gophers being pretty flat in November, still a favorite in this one, over under 39.5. So, and it makes sense. I feel like this could definitely be a lower scoring matchup, especially given Minnesota's defense if they can play at a high level. And then the FPI is going Minnesota as well, 60%. You look at the bowl history, Minnesota's had some pretty good success in recent time. PJ Fleck's he's led this team to some pretty good success, especially in 2019. That was obviously a huge standout season. And then since then they've won. I mean, this is also a team that's won 6 straight bowl games too. So that's something to keep in mind. They're 11-12 overall. Last season they were in the Pinstripe Bowl where they beat Syracuse, beat West Virginia in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl the year before, and obviously the huge win over Auburn in the Outback Bowl back in 2019. But as for Bowling Green, this team was in a game last season. They lost in the Quick Lane Bowl to Mexico State. It's the second straight year in the Quick Lane Bowl for Bowling Green. The last game before that was 2015. So this is only the second bowl game since 2015 for Bowling Green. Stat comparison, Minnesota 109th in points per game, 68th in points allowed, 125th in pass yards a game. The quarterback situation has been a mess for Minnesota this season. Obviously going from Tanner Morgan, who had that really good season back in 2019, really never reached that same level throughout the rest of his career. And then he passed it on to Caliac Manis, who was less than great this season. He just was not very good. 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns, over 9 picks. So just not a very good quarterback. And so honestly, and he's in the transfer portal, so he's not even going to be playing in this matchup, which honestly, it could be for the better for Minnesota. This team obviously needs to go in a different direction. But 69th in rush yards a game. The backfield is the main strength for this team. But obviously it's been different this season without Mo Ibrahim. They've kind of had to go between a few different running backs. And in recent time, it's been Jordan Newman who's actually shown some pretty good potential. And so for Minnesota, a pretty strong backfield. They don't have that lead back quite yet, but that definitely could emerge, I think, heading into next season. But you look at the defense, 47th in pass defense, 63rd against the run, so halfway decent defense. As for Bowling Green, 71st in points per game, 52nd in points allowed. They're 118th in pass yards a game. You got Connor Bazelak for Bowling Green, obviously the Indiana transfer. He was at Mizzou before that, so this is his 3rd school. And overall, less than great this season as well. 1,700 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 picks. So Bazelak, not a very big threat, but he does have Big Ten experience being from Indiana before Bowling Green. And then 76 and rush yards a game. This is a strong pass defense, 15th in pass defense this season. Too bad They're going up against the 125th ranked passing game in the country in Minnesota. But yeah, Bowling Green's defense overall pretty strong. Really, both teams are pretty similar when you look into it. You got two teams that have halfway decent backfields, but the quarterback situations have been messy this season. Your recent matchups: Minnesota lost to Wisconsin by a couple of touchdowns, lost to Ohio State, lost to Purdue, lost to Illinois. So we've talked about those tough losses down the stretch for Minnesota. But once again, for Bowling Green, this team has found a way. They've really come around. They've been much improved, and they beat Western Michigan. And the games, I mean, they've had some dominant wins too. Beat Western Michigan, beat Kent State by 30, beat Akron 41-14. So, and they lost to Toledo by 1. Toledo is a solid football team too. So, honestly, if you win that one, that means you won your last 6 games of the regular season. So, once again, it's been impressive what Bowling Green has done. Your key points: Minnesota 5-7, started the season 5-3. Didn't win in November, and it's up to Max Brosmer for the quarterback situation. And so this is going to be an interesting game, seeing how he does. I'm honestly surprised that Cali McManus was in all season. I mean, we really didn't see much of Max Brosmer, so this is going to be his first start for the Gophers. So that's obviously something that's going to be interesting for really the future of Minnesota in this quarterback situation. And honestly, based on how he plays in this matchup, I feel like that's going to give us honestly a pretty good look into what this offense could look like next season, and maybe if this offense has some upside. But they got talent defensively, but I mean, this defense also has been less than impressive in November. They allowed 27 to Illinois, 49 to Purdue. I mean, so this defense, I mean, their stats are halfway decent, but those are mainly from the first couple of months of action. Really, in November, this defense slipped quite a bit. But for Bowling Green, similar to the Gophers, but they have momentum, which is something you got to look at when predicting bowl games. Former Indiana quarterback Connor Bazelak starting, so he's obviously played a lot of Big Ten teams before. And defense is where the Falcons shine most. That's really for both teams. And Bowling Green's defense has been better in November. But you also got to consider, too, who Bowling Green is playing in the MAC versus who Minnesota is playing in the Big Ten. So obviously for Minnesota, they've played a much more difficult schedule. But, I mean, there's a lot of factors to consider when you consider Bowling Green's also been much improved this season. But with that, let's get a prediction here for Minnesota and Bowling Green coming up here in the Quick Lane Bowl. And in the end, this one is going to be close. It really could go either way, I think, just based on how both teams have played in recent time. But I do think Minnesota finds a way. 20-17 is my predicted final score. I mean, I really don't have much optimism for Minnesota. Bowling Green's a team that I feel like I kind of want to pick Bowling Green just because they've been much improved this season. But I do think Minnesota's defense shows up and they play a solid game, and in the end they hold off Bowling Green. And honestly, it could be lower scoring than this. I do think this will be a pretty low scoring, ugly matchup in the end. But I'm taking Minnesota 55% towards the Gophers. I'm taking the under for sure, and Bowling Green to cover the spread in the end. I'm also interested to see how Brosmer plays. I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen more of Brosmer this season, given the fact that Cali McManus was just terrible when he played this year. He just was just a bad quarterback for this team. So for Minnesota, it's going to be good to look into the future a little bit with the quarterback situation and with this offense. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, your score predictions, all of that. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.